Clint Eastwood. Just that name alone carries the weight of Hollywood's golden age, a name that echoes across generations, a symbol of toughness, grit, and raw human strength. But today, at 95 years old, that same legend stands at a point in his life that will make you pause, reflect, and maybe, just maybe, shed a tear. Because when you see what's happening to Clint Eastwood now, after all the years, all the glory, and all the silent battles he's fought behind the camera, you'll realize something deeper about life itself. So stay with me, because this isn't just another story about an actor. This is a journey through time, through pain, triumph, and legacy. A reminder that even the strongest men, the ones who seem untouchable, face their most human moments in silence. Can you imagine what it's like to be 95 and look back at nearly a century of memories? To see your friends gone, your body slow, your voice quieter, but your mind still burning with stories the world hasn't heard yet? That's Clint Eastwood right now. And before you judge the wrinkles or the fragile steps, remember every line on that man's face tells a story worth more than gold. But let's go back before the fame, before the Western stardom, before the world called him the man with no name. Let's go back to where it all began, when Clint Eastwood was just a kid trying to survive, with no clue that destiny had something extraordinary in store. Because what happened between then and now at 95 will not only surprise you, it will move you. Picture this. It's 1930. The world is in chaos, the Great Depression tightening its grip on America. In the middle of it, a baby boy is born in San Francisco, Clint Eastwood Jr. No fancy hospital, no silver spoon, just a humble family trying to make it through. His father was a steel worker, moving from job to job, and his mother worked hard to keep food on the table. Young Clint grew up learning something most Hollywood stars never did: the value of silence, work, and survival. He wasn't the class clown. He wasn't even the popular kid. In fact, most of his teachers thought he was too quiet, too reserved. But that quiet, that stillness, it would become his greatest weapon one day. Because when you watch Clint Eastwood on screen, those long, piercing stares, that controlled calm before the storm, that all started here. In the silence of his childhood, in the loneliness of not fitting in, Clint was unknowingly building the very essence of his legend. He worked odd jobs: lifeguard, lumberjack, paper mill worker, hard labor that carved strength into his hands and humility into his heart. He didn't come from fame, he built it. And when opportunity finally knocked in the form of small acting roles, Clint didn't rush to grab fame. He studied it. He observed people. He learned. He once said, "If you want a guarantee, buy a toaster." That quote came from his early years of rejection because, in Hollywood, Clint was told no more times than most people could handle. He was too tall, too rugged, too quiet. They said he didn't have the Hollywood look. But that's the thing about Clint Eastwood. When the world says no, he doesn't argue. He just works harder. And that determination led him to a role that would change everything: a small Western TV series called Rawhide. You know, sometimes destiny hides behind moments that seem ordinary, so ordinary, you almost miss them. For Clint Eastwood, that moment came when he landed a small part in a TV Western called Rawhide. Now, most actors would have been thrilled just to be on camera. But Clint? He wasn't satisfied with just another role. He studied every camera angle, every line of dialogue, every tiny movement. He wanted to understand why certain scenes worked, why the audience cared. He was already thinking like a filmmaker, even when nobody knew his name. And when Rawhide took off, people started noticing that tall, quiet cowboy with the piercing eyes. But here's the twist. Instead of getting comfortable, Clint got curious. He wanted more. He wanted to tell stories that felt real. So when an Italian filmmaker named Sergio Leone reached out with an idea for a new kind of Western, one that wasn't polished, one that was raw, dusty, and brutally honest, Clint took the risk. That decision changed movie history forever. Can you picture it? A lone rider, dust swirling, eyes narrowed under the brim of his hat. No name, no past, just presence. That was a fistful of dollars, the birth of The Man with No Name. And the world went crazy. Nobody had ever seen a Western like that. It wasn't clean-cut like John Wayne's America. It was gritty, dangerous, filled with moral grayness, and Clint was perfect for it. His silence spoke louder than dialogue ever could. He didn't need to talk. His stare was the story. Then came For a Few Dollars More, and then the good, the bad, and the ugly. And just like that, Clint Eastwood became the face of a new era. He wasn't just an actor anymore. He was a myth, a symbol of power, independence, and quiet strength. But fame is never free. Behind the tough image, Clint was still that same quiet man who had seen struggle. He didn't chase the Hollywood party life. While others celebrated their fame with champagne and flashing lights, Clint preferred silence, the sound of wind in the hills, and the feel of a camera in his hand. Because deep down, he wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing meaning. And that's when another dream started growing inside him, the dream to direct. He had watched directors for years, the way they commanded a set, the way they shaped emotion out of chaos. And he thought, I can do that. I can tell stories that make people feel something real. So he took his biggest leap yet and stepped behind the camera. That leap changed not just his career, but Hollywood itself. It was 1971. Most people still saw Clint as the cowboy with no name or the tough cop from Dirty Harry. But this time, he wanted to show something deeper, that the same man who could pull a trigger could also direct a story that touched the soul. His first major directorial success was Play Misty for Me, a psychological thriller that shocked everyone, not because of the story, but because of who was behind it. Clint Eastwood, the action star, the tough guy, had just proven he was a serious filmmaker. From there, he never looked back. High Plains Drifter, The Outlaw, Josie Wales, Pale Rider, Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, Gran Torino, each film wasn't just a story. It was a mirror that reflected life, pain, justice, and the moral struggles inside every person. He didn't need explosions or superheroes. He needed silence, humanity, and truth. And that's what made his films timeless. But let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how Clint's movies often deal with aging, loss, redemption, and regret? It's because those weren't just movie themes. They were parts of Clint's real life. He lived them. Behind the fame, Clint faced heartbreak, failed relationships, and the loneliness that comes with being a legend. He was married twice, had several relationships, and fathered 8 children, some of whom he didn't even know about for years. And while Hollywood loved his power, Clint himself often sat alone, away from the spotlight, wondering if all that success had cost him something he could never get back. That's the thing about fame, it gives you everything except peace. And Clint knew that too well. You see, when people look at Clint Eastwood, they see the legend, the awards, the fame, the unbreakable cowboy who never flinched, never broke, never cried. But what they don't see is the price he paid for that image. Behind those steady eyes were years of silence, the kind of silence that hides 1,000 stories you'll never read about in magazines. Clint Eastwood wasn't just a man of few words. He was a man who carried a lifetime of unsaid things. Now imagine this. You're one of the biggest movie stars in the world. You've made millions. You've got fame, recognition, fans shouting your name in every country. But when you go home, the room is empty. The applause fades. The silence hits. That was Clint's reality more often than you'd think. He married twice first to Maggie Johnson in the 1950s, a quiet, beautiful woman who stood by him through his rise to fame. But Hollywood is not kind to love stories. While Clint was conquering the big screen, his personal life was falling apart. He had affairs, moments of distance, mistakes that he'd one day regret. It wasn't that Clint didn't love, it's that he didn't know how to love while living in a world that demanded so much of him. There were whispers, rumors, stories of secret children, some true, some not. But what's undeniable is this. Clint Eastwood loved deeply, but imperfectly. And that's what makes him human. Because beneath that tough cowboy image was a man who longed for connection, who wanted to be understood not as a movie icon, but as a person. He once said, "I tried being reasonable. I didn't like it. It was funny when you first heard it in Unforgiven. But in real life, those words had weight. Because Clint had spent decades being reasonable for everyone else, and it left him tired. And as time passed, something inside him changed. He started to slow down. He began reflecting on the things that really mattered: family, legacy, peace. The Hollywood lights that once fascinated him now just reminded him of everything temporary. He'd seen it all: fame, power, betrayal, success. And through it all, he realized that nothing lasts forever. Before we go on, if you love stories that honor true legends like Clint Eastwood, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, because you won't want to miss what's coming next.